Allons enfants de la patrie, le jour de gloire est arrivé, etc. Today we're going to be talking about ink by Herbin. Herbin's the oldest manufacturer of ink in the world, according to them, and I have no reason to doubt them. They have launched that super nice 1670 Rouge et Matite, the red ink, and they've also launched this Bleu. Not recently, it's been out for a while, but I didn't get it, and now I have gotten it. You get this box, which for an ink I think is actually a surprisingly nice box. It has an interesting texture, feels almost a bit like textile or something. It's interesting. It has this fairly fascinating, this is blue, right? It's ocean blue. Has some pretty nice stuff going on there, with mermaids and things. And it has a little bit of a description on there. That's nothing too fancy, but I think it's a pretty nice box. Then we get the 1670 little leaflet. Herbin was established in 1617 in Paris, nearby the towers of Notre Dame. Ink production started during the First French Empire. The inks were used by Napoleon Bonaparte and then by his son, the King of Rome. Oh yeah. So apparently that's pretty nice, and nice to have their history. And then we have the actual ink, which is, I think, a pretty cool bottle. It looks fancy, it is fancy. You have that you know, they make that sealing wax you can put in your envelope. Well, they also put that on their bottles, and it says 1670, and you can actually peel that off if you want to. It's really wax, it's not some type of plastic they've used. And then you have this interesting, the cap, or the lid of the bottle. They actually put some type of waxy stuff on there too, and I'm getting the ink on my fingers. That's alright. The only thing I don't like about this bottle, and that's something it's very hard to show you without tilting it, it's very full, is that it has a very narrow neck. I think it's impossible to fit a Mont Blanc 149 in there, for example. So that's what I don't like about this bottle. It looks super cool, I think, like a cube of ink, but the neck, they should really have made that broader. I noticed that there it looks like there's a little bit of silver. You can't see it. Let me see. There seem to be some silver specks in there, as there are gold specks in that red ink, except it's much less pronounced here. Okay, sorry, I was rambling. It's a blue ink. It's an interesting ink, but in all honesty, it's not something I've never seen before. So it's nice, but I like their red a lot better. And I think that is more than enough talk. I think we need to see this ink in action. That's what we're going to do next. I hope that's going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Oh, by the way, this is Inkcyclopedia number 51 for me. Dan did one, but if I don't count that, the ones I have done, 51, and I have launched one every week. Except during Christmas, I launched about 3 in a couple of days. So very soon, the Inkcyclopedia should have its first anniversary, I suppose. Isn't that nice? It's nice. And that's all there's to it. Bye-bye. Okay, boys and girls, it's time for another Inkcyclopedia, and today we will be having a look at Herbin 1670 Ocean Bleu. As you know, the 1670 range is commemorative, so this is an interesting ink. We're going to have a look at what we can make that ink do. So let us start with a bit of fine writing. And then a bit of medium writing. Many people do not realize this, but oceans are in fact fairly lazy things. They sort of get into the right flow and then don't do anything anymore. I've seen it many times. Stressed out oceans. It's a sad thing. Sometimes they're so lazy they don't even fit in the line anymore. They just get out. What I'm seeing here is a wet ink. Flows very well. I put this in the pens and the ink was just flowing straight away. No hard starts or anything. And then I want to see some flecks, which is going to be a good test of flow. Nice! Looks good to me. Okay, then let us start with some passes. It took me a while to realize this, but obviously I'm saving a lot of space when I go horizontal there. Yes. Okay, while we're at it, we may as well do some fat writing. How about we go for the H for Herbin. Herbin inks are inks I have a sort of special attachment to, because they were some of the first actual bottled inks I ever bought. Not the first, but I think a lot of people start out with Herbin. It's fairly widely available. They're decent inks, and one of the oldest makers of ink still in business today. I think even the oldest, actually. So that's kind of nice. Alright, now we have a bit of writing. And let's check how this is doing. It's dry. Okay. Second pass. Then I think we can have a look at the moment you've all been waiting for, the Tardif test. Now, it's going to be a little bit difficult to do a brown benchmark here because I cannot get my finger in. My finger is too large for the hole. Maybe I can... Okay. Well, that seems to work. Ladies and gentlemen, the brown benchmark. It ain't too spectacular, but it is what it is. Okay, and I think this is definitely, yes, that is dry. That means we can start with the bastard brush. Notice the wavy pattern created there. 'Tis ocean after all. Alright, so what can we conclude up to this point? I think this is still a bit... yes, it's still not dry. Well, it's a dark blue. I wouldn't call this as spectacular as the 1670 Rouge et Matite, which is their red ink, which has a very nice gold sheen. It's a very deep red, and this is a... well, I'm not sure whether I would go so far as to call it a bland blue, but it is just a dark blue. I've seen this a lot of times. It's a good dark blue, but it is a dark blue. So I don't think it is as spectacular as the 1670 red, which I would pick any day over this. But this is not a bad ink. It's not bad at all. Okay. The Tardif test shows us some nice shading, going from fairly light blue to something that is really, really dark. Yeah, I see it's probably a little bit lighter in my camera, but this is a very, very dark indigo type of blue. And I think, speaking of dark, we can do our third pass there. There we go. Okay, and unfortunately this is still a bit wet, so I think I'm going to start up with the scorecard, and then we'll see how we progress from there. So let's start with cleaning. Well, I've only had this ink for a few days, but I have cleaned it out of a pen, and that was absolutely no problem, so I'm going to give that a 1. Bleed through. I cannot write anymore, sorry. Bleed through. Well, we don't know that yet. We'll have to see. Color. Dark blue. Shading. Shading is interesting, but I wouldn't call that extremely pronounced. In fact, I see very little of it going on. There's a little bit going from light to dark there, but even in a broad nib, it's just a very dark blue. I don't really see a lot of shading. There's very minimal bit there, but I really think this is... I mean, you see it there in the super broad nib, but who writes with a 6mm nib? I mean, these days. I'm going to give it the lowest score. Okay, then we have flow. Well, flow is excellent. There is nothing I can complain about there. Feathering is very good. We still have to do the copier paper test, but what I noticed earlier this morning when I was trying to establish a flow in my pens, of course I always test that before I record the video, what I'd like to show you here is a little bit of this paper. This is from a pocket book, and I'm going to grab my flex... no, yeah, okay, I'm going to grab my flex pen. So this is the one that I've been using here for this 1670 ink. And you can see that even when I flex it, there is a bit of feathering, right? There's a bit of feathering right there. I'm going to zoom in a second. Give me a second there. But here I have my comparison ink for the day, which is a very good ink by in itself. And as you can see, I mean, look at this flex. Let me zoom in there a bit. You see the difference? This 1670, it feathers, absolutely. But if you compare it to this, and it's not an isolated incident. That was the comparison ink, and this is the 1670. There's definitely feathering, I'm not denying that, but I think it's a lot less pronounced in the 1670 ink, which is not bad at all. I think that's pretty impressive, actually. So, that's cool. I would say that feathering is going to be a high score, but we have to wait until we've seen the copier paper. Then we have the drying time. Well, the drying time is okay. If you do something excessive like this, then it's going to take a while before it's dry. But it looks like it's pretty fast drying. And then we have waterproofness. Sorry. And that is something we have to test. Now we have already had this, and this is not entirely dry, so I'm just going to grab a sheet of blotting paper here and dry that up, because we need that to be dry. Okay, and then it's time for the eyedropper of death. Okay. Well, that is definitely doing something. But I find it interesting because with this, most blues that I know are just erased by water. And I'm not saying this is entirely waterproof, but you can still read every letter that's in there, and I use quite a bit of water. So what I'm going to do now is just grab a towel. I'm going to get rid of this ink, water. There we go. Bits of it are definitely faded significantly, but there are quite some bits that I really see. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely pretty good. I'm going to give it a middle score for that. And then we need to move on to copier paper. Here we go. Let us start with a bit of fine writing. Followed by some medium writing. Followed by some really wet, broad writing. Tautological statements. And then some flex writing. Ooh, my feet is touching the paper. Alright, so this was not feathering, that was just a blob of ink that fell out because my feet was touching the paper. Then finally we just need a bit of a big letter. Well, that's a big letter. You've got to love the G, and this one is poorly drawn. But even so, I still love the G. G. Okay. Now, I see feathering, boys and girls, and I see some feathering there. So it is not the perfectly unfeathering ink that I expected it to be. It's not entirely bad, but it's not entirely fantastic either. Bleed through is very pronounced. Bleed through in broad, italic, flex, fat writing. I can even see a few marks there in the medium writing. So bleed through score is not that fantastic. On the Rhodia paper, of course, it should be less pronounced, but even there, okay, these are 3 passes. That is really fat writing. Round benchmark. For normal writing, there's not a whole lot of bleed through. But the copier paper is fairly pronounced, so I think we can just say that bleed through is definitely not full marks. It's not terrible either, but I mean, if you even get it, well, the medium writing is not that pronounced. You really have to go to a very wet broad nib and copier paper to do it. I think 2 is about adequate. Feathering, let's give it a 2. I was hoping for a 1, but it's not. Okay, inkage, 1, 3, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12. There we go. Okay, now the last thing I would like to do is a comparison between this ink and yet another ink. So what we have here is Herbin well, in the 70. Counting in French is something that I never truly learned, I'm afraid. 70? I just forgot. I'm sorry. Alright, we got that going. Now what we need is a comparison ink. And that comparison ink is none other than Pelican. Pelican. It's very easy to sing the Rocky tune in Pelican. Pelican. Königsblau. Königsblau. See? Really easy. Da-da. Boom. Is it a perfect comparison? No, but I think you'll see the... what I'm trying to say here is that every ink manufacturer has his blue, right? You got Waterman with Florida blue, Mont Blanc with royal blue, Pelican with royal blue. And now Herbin has this 1670 ink, which is supposed to be super fancy. And it's nice, I mean, I like it, but it's a dark blue. And I've seen this a lot of times. I don't think Pelican Königsblau is a worse ink, or less interesting. So, there you have it. You know what? That's all there's to it. I think this is all I can say. I hope you have found this useful, and I'll see you later.